Well, 24 minutes past 9. Finally today we wanted to turn to Myanmar and the plight of the Rohingya minority, a Muslim minority in that country, which is making headlines around the world. And in Hong Kong, there were protests on Sunday over the actions, calls for the government here to take some action. Tell us more a little bit about that case, what's now been described by the UN as a textbook example of genocide. We have Yasir Naveed, who's a spokesperson with the Hong Kong Working Group Against Rohingya Genocide, and also Iftikhar Khan, who's the chief organizer of the protest against Rohingya Genocide. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you for
having us.
What's this got to do with people in Hong Kong? Let me start with that.
First of all, we believe that Hong Kong is obviously Asia's world city. It's an international city, and we cannot turn a blind eye towards the genocide happening right across our doorstep. So Hong Kong has a lot of power, and with great power comes great responsibility. So we believe that Hong Kong legislators should not turn a blind eye. They should first of all condemn this massacre and also issue the much needed relief aid for the victims of this genocide.
So, according to your knowledge, what's happening over in Myanmar now? And, how many refugees have fled to Bangladesh and elsewhere?
First of all, what has been happening in Myanmar is not just a one-off thing. It has been happening for decades. There has been systematic discrimination against the people of Rohingya, who are an ethnic minority in Myanmar. Recently, there has been a lot of violence. A lot of people have been killed in hundreds or even in thousands. The government figures are obviously downplayed, and they say that hundreds of people have been killed. Around 200,000 people have fled in the past few days to Bangladesh. And because initially the Bangladesh government was not on board, a lot of people died in the sea, which the Myanmar government and the Bangladesh government do not own. So this is a basic human rights tragedy which we are facing right across the border, right across our doorstep.
Okay. The part of Aung San Suu Kyi is kind of controversial in this as well. Mr. Khan, what would you like Aung San Suu Kyi to do in this situation?
Actually, Aung San Suu Kyi got Nobel Prize. So we are urged Nobel organizer to consider what he's doing on this issue, because Nobel Prize is for the peacekeeping and the peace worker, but in this situation, the Aung San Suu Kyi is not doing well, not doing enough for these Rohingyas.
Actually, during the protest on Sunday, Mr. Khan was one of the people in the front line, and he was shouting the slogans. So he has a bad throat at the moment. And yes.
Okay. She was also the recipient of an honorary degree from the University of Hong Kong.
Exactly.
Have you approached the university?
Actually, yes. So our working group is not just doing this one-off protest. We are coming up with a plan, with an action plan to deal with this tragedy, not just in other parts of the world, but in Hong Kong as well. Because we belong to Hong Kong, we love our city, and we believe that we have the responsibility to raise this issue in as many ways as possible, as many legal and legitimate ways as possible. So we are going to approach the University of Hong Kong. We're going to ask them what is their definition of peace. Does that definition include people who are unarmed civilians? Does that definition include the people of Rohingya? What do they consider the rights of the minorities? And do they want to leave this legacy behind? So the University of Hong Kong is not just an academic institution. It shapes Hong Kong's policies. Do you want to leave this legacy behind, that you have awarded a person who is not just silent about a war crime, but she's in fact supporting and legitimizing the genocide? So this is our question, not just to the University of Hong Kong. This is our question to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee and every single person who has actually received the Nobel Peace Prize. We are also urging the former President Barack Obama, what is your definition of peace? You are the one on the list as well. Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani girl.
You see, some people in Myanmar will say that there are armed forces, that these are people who are fighting the government.
Yes, this is just a classic example of how do you legitimize the death of hundreds of civilians at the hands of armed forces. You know what happens is you have been persecuting a minority.
Are there armed forces? There are Rohingya forces that are fighting the government?
First of all, I am not on ground, so I cannot say that. The reports that are coming out of Myanmar are coming from the government agencies of Myanmar. So we're just listening to one side of the story. The Rohingya people have not had their voice for decades. Now, you cannot say that if the government says there are a few hundred people who are out to kill, or there are a few people who have taken up arms against us, then you have the legitimate right to kill every single person or burn the villages. That is not how professional armies behave. It is time for Myanmar and the world forces to realize, how do you deal with such conflicts? First of all, give them the rights. Give them their rights. They cannot even marry out of their own choice. They have to get permission from the local policeman. With these things, with systematic torture and violence, what do you expect the young people to do? I'm not saying that it is right for people to pick up their guns. I'm not saying that. And I'm very clear that people in Hong Kong and every single Muslim all around the world, we are committed to peace. Our religion talks about peace at all levels. But you have to give the right to the people to speak out. This is not the right way to speak, to take up the guns, but there is no way that you can say that some people are taking up the guns, so I'm going to kill everybody in the village. Also, is it really true that people are taking up guns? How do they even get the money to get the guns? These are really legitimate questions that the Myanmar army and the government has to answer. And the problem is Aung San Suu Kyi and her friends are becoming the legitimizing force against this violence. They have become the wall or the cover-up against the genocide. So instead of being the person that Desmond Tutu wants her to be, Aung San Suu Kyi is just supporting violence.
Okay. Well, Yasin Navi, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And Iftikhar Khan, thank you very much indeed. I hope
thank you very
throat
much.
gets better. That's it for the programme today.